Now, just insider tip if you want to have lunch now, there's a long queue outside, so you better stay here for the next 25 minutes because you can sit down here casually instead of just waiting. Now, we are going to talk about predictions here about digital assets, what impact it will have on the markets. The year was 1999. I was working in consulting and was keen on entering venture capital. And everybody was saying the internet is going to be big. Amazon had already been founded, and there was a huge, huge hype. I went into venture capital, and about 4 months after I started, the market crashed. Talk about great timing. So all of a sudden, all these people who had talked about the internet being the greatest thing on earth was not so great anymore. And we've seen several predictions around Web3, where people say, what value does Web3 actually have for humanity? I mean, now that AI is stealing all the spotlight of Web3, the question is, what does it really do? Now, I don't know if you've been here yesterday and listening to the various panels on what happens to the back end of financial services, but it's not even a prediction, but what is happening right now is that the entire back end is being transformed. And it will take its time, but everything is working on it. Somebody said yesterday, the time of proof of concepts is over. We are seriously changing the landscape. So that's why we're here today. And I'm very glad to be with my panel members. We should have Jamil from New York. Can I just ask the direction if Jamil is with us? I know he was, there you are, perfect. Hello, Jamil. So I'd like to welcome my panel members, Uli Spankowski, Masoud Sultan, and Alexander Balzer, and Jamil Sheikh from New York to our today's panel presentation. I'm really glad to have you here because you all have a very different background. And one of my questions will be, from your daily work, what is it that you expect in the future for the crypto markets? And let's start with a quick introduction, and let's start with you, Masoud.
Yeah, thank you. Excited to be here. My name is Masoud Sultan. Worked in the financial services industry for several years in the consulting space. Then pivoted and started at the Frankfurt School Blockchain Center here as a project manager, working on education and consulting, but also part of the core team of the International Token Standardization Association, working on market standards. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Then I take the word. I'm Alexander Balzer. I'm the CEO and founder of Adfinity. We're automating and orchestrating client processes for banks, wealth managers, crypto companies. And what we do, actually, we have a no-code platform that digitizes end-to-end those journeys. So difficult KYC, difficult KYB, very easy with us. We'll tell you more if you're interested. How did I get into crypto? Maybe to give you a bit of a spotlight there. What we did is we actually worked with the classical banks. Then at some point between Christmas and New Year, I got a call from the CEO of Bitcoin Swiss saying, listen, we need to review thousands of clients. Can you help us on that? We said, yep, sure, why not? Can you do that tomorrow? We're like, okay, if that's necessary, we do that. And after a week, we started the project. We actually did all the KYC, AML, lifecycle processes with them. And for us, that was a great intro into the crypto space. And we figured out, well, it's pretty much the same as banking. So I'm interested to learn more on that. And I think we share some of those opinions already.
Uli, you come from banking.
Well, not pure banking, but rather exchange. Yeah, I'm Uli. I'm CDO of Börse Stuttgart Group. We at Börse Stuttgart have a complete institutional-grade infrastructure for brokerage, trading, and custody of crypto and digital assets. We've been building that up already since 2018. I think amongst the traditional financial players, so we are a 160-year-old exchange group. I guess we were among the first that entered into crypto, that entered into digital assets, and really, well, set up business models that took quite a significant market share. And yeah, well, now we are all about, you know, the change that's currently going on, or might not call it change, but crypto is already a little bit outdated. Now comes DeFi, tokenization, tokenization of assets of all kind. Basically, I thought that would happen 3 years ago. It still didn't happen. So let's see what the future brings, and this is what we do and spend our time with.
Thanks, Uli. Jamil, thanks very much for getting up early tomorrow and joining us from New York. I know you wanted to be here live in person. Thanks anyway for joining us. You're wearing many hats. Could you explain some of them to us?
Sure. And yes, I apologize for not being there. I wish I was. I was there last year. I got prevented by a last-minute ear infection, so I couldn't fly. But I do a couple of different things. I run 3 organizations. One's called Chain House. We do digital asset advisory. The second is Instrument, which is enterprise token management platform. And then the third is a platform called Modeler, which is a machine learning tool to model digital currencies and CBDCs. And I also run something called CBDC Think Tank. We engage with central banks around CBDC advisory. So those are the initiatives I run. I run a very large blockchain. Is actually the largest blockchain community in New York City. Locally, we're about 40,000 people here. I also teach at a couple of different universities, including Columbia and Zicklin, and ZIBS in China. I'm writing a couple of books. I finished writing a book a couple of years ago on the Corda blockchain. Just wrapped up a chapter in an NFT book for Cambridge Press, and writing a DeFi book for Columbia Press that'll come out later this year. And so I've been in banking for 20 plus years. Worked for like JP, Lehman, and also have a technical background.
Okay, thanks very much. Maybe if we could start in New York. You said you're writing a lot of books. What book will you write in 2040 about the history of crypto assets? What will the title be?
We finally did it. Maybe that might be the title. I think by 2040, what we're lacking today is a killer app. Maybe Bitcoin is that killer app today for us because it seems to be resilient and viable and an alternative to other assets in the market, whether it's fiat assets or other types of assets or even equities. So maybe Bitcoin is that killer app for today. But besides that, in the Web3 space, we don't have a killer app. And so in some sense, we've failed we have a lot of ideology in the space. And maybe some of that ideology is filtered out, and we focus on something more important, which is utility. And so 2040, the book that I would possibly write would be about how we arrived at this killer app. And what I mean by killer app, it means that it has imminent adoption, just wide scale adoption, and specifically retail adoption, right? So we have 50, 100 million, 200 million users using the application at minimum, if not a large percentage of the global population. We're still not there. I think we can get there. We will get there. It'll take a little time, and it will probably come by accident or kind of in a way that's not really expected.
Okay, thanks very much. Let's move back to Frankfurt. Masoud, 2014. He said. Jamil said the title is we eventually. No, what did he say? We finally did it. What will your title be?
Well, I start a little bit different. So I think the beauty in this field is that it is quite unpredictable. So if we think back 5 or 6 years ago, who would have thought of those innovations that happened? So DeFi, automated market makers, liquidity pools and stuff like that. 5 or 6 years ago, everyone talked about enterprise blockchain solutions. But what we have seen was completely different. So moving forward, I think the way innovation works is that it is in general quite unpredictable. And moving forward, I think we will see a lot of solutions and an ecosystem that we don't think of at the moment. But of course, I have some assumptions, and I think I think in 20 or 30 years we will live in a completely tokenized economy, in an economy where everyone can co-own things, can contribute to things because everything is open source. And the way we handle data will be completely different. So completely different to what we know right now because of zero knowledge proofs, because of blockchain solutions, and injected AI into the blockchain and smart contracts. And what I think is in 20 or 30 years, the way we interact with Web3 will be completely natural and will be integrated in our day-to-day lives. And traditional financial institutions will be also different to what we know right now. So what I have seen in the last few years in the consulting space is that banks have understood that the core banking services that they provide are not sustainable. And that's why a lot of major financial institutions are changing the strategies into the direction of being a technology company. And the journey into the direction of blockchain will incentivize this even more, I guess. And that's why I think the core banking products like lending, borrowing, and those services will be done in a completely decentralized way, while the banks, the traditional banks, will be the infrastructure providers, offering wallet as a service or tokenization as a service. So that would be my assumption. Happy to hear about your thoughts.
Thanks very much. If you could just hold the microphone close to your mouth, because it's easier for our audience to understand.
Thanks a lot, Masoud. So while I agree with many of the things that have been said, I think one of the key aspects that I find, and that has been seen also already starting now, is the players will converge to become more closer to banks. While infrastructure can also move much more into the space that you've mentioned, what I'm seeing is that the players that actually get the money, they get the attention, that are the ones that are also being heavily regulated. And I think that's also something that I got as a feedback from many of the players in Switzerland, that they have been able in this recent crisis to win a lot of assets. And I think that will also be the strength of the future. If you are well regulated, then this can be your way to gain a lot of traction.
Thank you. Uli, you are working at Börse Stuttgart Digital, so you know a lot about their systems.
Banking systems, you mean?
Yeah, but can incumbent players change as quickly as they would need to change? Or will they be replaced?
I think every company can change. The question is there a need to change? And how, let's say, urgent is it to really have to change? But maybe also going back to what you guys were saying, let me put it this way, I'm not so confident anymore. I mean, 2040 is quite some time, right? When we started doing our tokenization business, crypto business in 2017, 2018, I said, 2020, we will trade everything tokenized. Real estate, art, Ferraris, everything we want to put into our portfolio will be there. And I love diversification, so it's actually a cool thing for everybody. Now, we have 2023, and we mainly trade crypto, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ether. That's it, right? So I think the adoption path, I mean, looking at 2040, could be a time range where this could be possible. But I think one very important part that you brought up is regulation, and what kind of the regulatory framework will allow us to do, and is also, let's say, good that we have it, that it won't allow everything. I mean, the picture that you were painting, I like it very much, and I think it will be much more of a subliminal use of tokens in our daily business. But I think we also have to be quite cautious of what's possible and what's not possible. So doing everything on tokens and having tokens reigning our world, so to say, I'm not sure. Technically, yes, but then if you go to data protection, if you go to regulation, KYC, AML, that type of things, I think they play a very important role, which then also will have a hard implication on business cases. And yeah, the question really is, will we be having a completely tokenized world? And right now, I'd say I doubt it.
The thing with technical adoption is it does take a long time, and although the things are feasible, it doesn't mean they are done. I mean, I think you mentioned the 97% non-cash use in Norway. Well, in Germany, it's definitely different. There are people who are only now starting using credit cards. There are still people who are taking their Überweisungsbeleg, their paper transfer notice to a bank. There are still people without mobile phones or that are not using apps. And I noticed, and having seen several industrial turnarounds from the PC to the internet to mobile to blockchain to AI, there's a group of people who jump on these new technologies very quickly, and there are others who are left out for 20 years. And Jamil, I mean, you said it's you are skeptical. You're positive that in 2040 we might have finally done it, but you are still waiting for a killer app. Why is it a killer app? I mean, can't it be just several sensible use cases?
So I think I agree with the last speaker. I do have significant doubts as well, and it's maybe a correction in my understanding of, in my perspective of the market. For example, I teach a course on blockchain and have really 30, 40 smart students, and I gave them a very simple assignment: write a 5-page paper, tokenize something, and tell me why. What's the value proposition? And they thought it was a simple assignment. Oh, I can write a 5-page paper. And I said, you can do it in teams if you want. 2 or 3 people just huddle up. And it's a semester. They struggle to find a value proposition around tokenization. Everybody stated the same thing, like, oh, liquidity and all of that. But it's specifically for the use case that you want to tokenize, things that you want to tokenize, real estate or rights or voting, whatever you want to tokenize, tangible or intangible things. Why would I use a token as opposed to doing things that I'm doing already? And let's just make it more efficient. And so they struggle with that. So I learned from them in many ways. Say this is potentially an issue, like why? So I tokenize real estate, and so I can fractionalize it, but you can do it anyway still. So I get global liquidity. Well, there's other ways to do that, right? So there is this concern, and I think it's a healthy concern, and it may bring about innovation that's needed, because I believe the space is too full of ideology. And I try to avoid all this ideology that Bitcoin's good, Bitcoin's bad, this is good, that's bad, and try to focus on utility and value proposition, and that is imminent and more immediate. So the value proposition of a credit card is clear. The value proposition of using digital money as, let's say, PayPal or equivalent of that is clear. There is not a lot of unclarity around the value proposition. There's resistance in some quarters in the world to that, and that resistance is mainly, you can say it is bias. It's a biased resistance. They may not have a clear-cut reason. They don't trust banks and things like that. So whereas there's not a question of value proposition there. Here, I think in the blockchain world, we do have a question of what is the why? Why do I do this? Bank-to-bank type of tokens and trading, there's higher value proposition, but in the retail market for individuals, how do I get my next billion users? I think there's questions. And I also agree that the answer will come out of nowhere, much like AI. And AI may impact AI agents and autonomous agents require the ability to interact and trade, and may accelerate trade, and we end up maybe trading more things. These AI agents are trading more things, and we arrive at the blockchain being as a solution for AI agents, autonomous agents, to trade and keep track of records. It's their accounting system. The blockchain can be an accounting system, but this will be, I think, by and large, still unpredictable. Where innovation, by and large, overall history has been always something that's been a surprise to the markets and been unanticipated. typically something that's somebody stumbled on and it was lucky and the market supported it. Same thing like AMMs. So you know, a young kid create Uniswap, didn't really expect much, and boom, it opened up another world in the DeFi space. So I think that's going to occur, but I think we have some hard questions to face right now, and I think we will come around and arrive at a killer app. It's just going to take a little bit more time.
And sentiments can change very quickly. I mean, half a year ago, if people would have mentioned that there would be a tool like ChatGPT, you wouldn't believe that. And the thing with artificial intelligence, for 50 years, everybody said it's just around the corner. Now let's see how the current hype will materialize and something good will comes out of it. But I asked my panel members to have very controversial discussions. We don't want 4 people here saying it's all going to be great. So Jamil, you're saying you're more on the skeptical side today, saying not everything will be tokenized. Let's see, there's still this killer app. I still take away that you are curious to what the technology can do. Let's open up the panel to my Frankfurt colleagues here. Where do you think the biggest push will come in the next 10 years? And it can be both retail or institutional. Who would like to?
I think you asked me before about banking systems, or in general, it doesn't matter whether it's banking systems, core systems, or trading systems. I think the biggest need is always where you can be more efficient by using tokens or blockchain technology, and that also means where you can save costs. So if you look at international trading of securities, the settlement process is quite costly. This is why typically as a retailer or also as an institutional, you either have to face high costs, or as an institutional you really try to net out and only settle once in a while to not really have these high costs. So I think blockchain will be able to solve on a settlement process here or increase efficiencies here in that kind. And this is what I can also imagine, that in the near future, like the next 2 to 5 years, we will see a significant change within the financial system. Where I don't see it, to be fair and honest, in the next 5 years is us driving around with our cars, passing the parking garage, and automatically money is, being earned or transferred for whatever freaky use cases you could come up with. I mean, hypothetically, they're all nice and sound cool, but to be fair and honest, I think that's not the biggest need. And also, this can also be done by not using DLT.
Uli, we receive about 2,000 pitch decks every year, and although there are some really great founder teams and great ideas among them, there are many where you just scratch your head, as you said, and wonder, who on earth needs that? Now, we are often wrong, as we know that, but there are some crazy ideas that still need to materialize.
Yeah, unfortunately for the discussion, I have to agree. But in any case, what I'm seeing is definitely what it enables is to come back to the table and discuss on some of those things as settlements between institutional parties. That definitely allows to start a discussion anew and have a new message to take and a new platform to take. And I think that's the strong point about using that. On the other side, I also agree, I think more on if we're talking more the consumer side, on the consumer side, it always gets hairy, it always gets messy. There's a lot of, you mentioned it, investor protection, there's always data protection questions. And these type of questions somebody needs to answer. And usually that only comes with expensive processes around it. So that's exactly what I have to face on a daily basis.
So what you're saying, that on the institutional side, the path is clear. That's also what Uli has been saying, that there will be, technology will adapt, and the use of blockchain could find a sensible use case in the institutional.
In the short-term feature, yeah. And there maybe also going in the direction of Jamil, there needs to be a couple of tries on the end client side, on the consumer side, to actually come up with that case that makes sense.
Maybe it's also because Web3 is not so visible. I mean, it's more in the back end than the front end. Internet and AI is all about front end. well, AI is both, which makes it difficult. Masoud, you're also working at ITSA. Right. What are some of your findings with regards of where the path will take us over the next 20 years?
So picking up what you both have said, or you three have, picking up what you both or you three have said, completely agree that in the short term, I also don't see those use cases popping up. But there's a quote from Naval Ravikant that I really like, and it says, the world was not built by pessimists. So I'm quite optimistic about some developments that will take part in the future. And so while agreeing that regulations will slow down innovation, and especially companies in the crypto space will be scrutinized a little bit more, especially in the short term, what we have seen in the past is that as soon as regulations come up, like for example the MiCA regulations coming in the next year, 2 or 3 years later we are seeing a lot of institutions and companies and applications popping up. So that's why I think on the one hand we will see tremendous adoption from an institutional side in the next 5 years. And another thing that was mentioned that I want to pick up was the AI thing, and I see no world without blockchain, no AI world without blockchain. And I want to bring a simple example. Maybe some of you have seen the picture of the Pope with a down jacket. And it was quite realistic. It looked like a real picture, actually. And we have seen a lot of generative AI solutions that look quite real. And what we need in the future, and already now we cannot distinguish between AI generated content and also human generated content. That's why in the future, with AI being developed even further, I think we need some kind of proof of humanity. And this proof of humanity, in my thinking, can only be solved with integrating data points and linking every important data point with blockchain. So that comes to bringing me back to my point that I think that in the future, in 20, 30 years, still everything will be tokenized, at least important data points.
Thanks very much, Masoud. We're almost nearing the end. I don't think I have enough time to ask a last final question. Actually, Jamil, I liked your quote, "We finally did it," but nobody will know how we will have done it now. So that's the big question. Predictions are difficult because they always involve the future, as the old saying says. But I'd like to thank my panel members for giving their controversial opinions today about this topic. And thank you, the audience, very much.